to another episode of Beyond the Stable. Today I'm joined by no other than Laurence Hunt. Laurence, for anyone who doesn't know you, do you want to give a little introduction?
Yeah, so I'm a former five-star event rider, and I've been doing it for, God, too long, years. And now I specialise in producing young horses and breeding. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, summed up. I want to take it right back to the beginning,
Yeah.
start from the very start. How did you get into horses?
So I wasn't really from a horsey family. I lived in London, but I was animal mad. So I was any kind of animal I was obsessed about. But my mum and my auntie were quite horsey, and they had ponies each. And I sort of went to a local riding school, and when I was like going into a teenager, like when I was about 12, we moved to the countryside, and then it sort of developed from there. We bought
Yeah.
a farm, and my dad bought me a pony, and yeah, it just sort of went on from there. I was like horse mad from like tiny.
What was that first pony like?
So the very first pony that I had was a little grey, like Welsh mountain thing, and my dad bought it for me as a surprise for Christmas, and
That's so nice.
it was literally in the middle of London. You walk down a little alleyway, and there was like a little stable yard down there. You'd never have known it was there, and then there was this little white pony, and I was like so excited, and then rode it, and I was terrified. It was so naughty. So luckily, my mum could ride, so she rode it a little bit for me when I was at school. I was only probably about 8 years old when I got
Yeah.
her, and then eventually I got my confidence with her, and then she was sold, and then we, like I said, we moved to the farm, and then we bought another pony called Toffee, and then I was away. Then I was like hooked.
So how did you find growing up kind of at school and stuff, riding horses?
So obviously we lived in London, so
Yeah.
it was difficult to like, it wasn't really a horsey area. But I used to go and work at a local riding for disabled centre, and I used to help out all day, mucking out,
Okay, yeah, yeah.
leading, in return for a bit of a ride. Um, and school was never really one of my passions. If I could get out of it, I would get out of it. I'd fake a tummy ache or go to the bus, and then when I saw my mum and dad leave for work, I'd creep back to the farm and just ride all day. All I wanted to do was be around animals and horses. So
Was there anyone during that time at school that like tried to drag you down or put you off your passion or anything like that?
no, I think as a boy at school, it's probably different now. But I think as a as a lad growing up, if you rode horses, you were classed as being a bit girly and stuff like that. So, but that kind of thing never really bothered me because I had friends outside of school. So
Yeah.
I was
Were those
like,
friends horsey?
yeah, more into the horses. My auntie was a massive influence. Like she always supported me with like any kind of animal like hobby and horse riding, and she probably really pushed me. She was the one that bought me my first horse after I'd had the ponies,
Yeah.
when we moved to Godstone in Surrey. And yeah, I probably owe most of it to her.
Yeah.
So
So no
yeah.
one was dragging you down. You were that passionate. If someone was at school, a young boy or whatever, and people are taking the mick and trying to drag them down, would you have any advice for them to power through it?
Yeah, I would just think like, when you're a kid, and, kids can be quite spiteful towards each other. And especially when I was growing up at school and they were like, oh, horses are for girls and stuff like that. Actually, what you've got to remember is you've got to actually be physically strong,
Yeah.
as a rider, and physically fit. And if you look at the top level, there's a lot of very successful male riders, and actually it probably overrides some of the women riders. I think there's probably, as a ratio, there's more men riders than women riders. Maybe more in show jumping than eventing, it's quite even. But yeah, I would just be like, I wouldn't worry about people, trying to put you down for something that you love to do.
Yeah.
And my advice would be like, you get on another go,
Yeah.
because I bet you can't do it.
Yeah, that's amazing advice. Love that. So that first little pony that you had that you got for Christmas,
Yeah.
which is so cool, by
Yeah,
the way.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
like every kid's dream,
Yeah.
get given a pony for Christmas. What did you do with it?
So nothing really apart from just ride it around the roads in London. And there was a tiny little paddock, and in the summer they would set up some little jumps and stuff like that. Um, we were really limited in what we could do. Oh,
Yeah.
hi Peggy. With the riding, because obviously you're in like a built-up area.
Yeah.
So it was literally just riding down the roads, going to the common, riding in a paddock. There was no shows involved. It was literally just had a pony and you rode it around London.
Yeah. So when you were getting your lessons at the riding school, were you
Yeah.
jumping and stuff then?
So when I got my first pony, I'd had some riding lessons at a little riding centre in Streatham, and there I was like learning to canter and pop some jumps and stuff like that. But I was quite nervous as a kid, so I wasn't a brave kid. So I liked a steady pony.
Yeah.
And then I once got put on quite a goey pony, and that knocked me a little bit. I still wanted to do it. I still loved it, but I had to like build my confidence back up again. And because we weren't in an area where you could go to rallies and have training and stuff like that, literally it was like a once a week lesson. And then I got a little job at the Riding for Disabled. My brother was born with one hand and he used to go and ride there. And then when I was old enough, I went and got a job there. So I'd muck out, lead, the disabled children round. And then in return for that, excuse me, I got a ride.
Yeah.
And then that sort of progressed me on. I was having lessons and it was getting better and better.
And then you moved to the farm. Did you bring that pony with you to the farm, the original
No,
pony?
so that pony, sorry. So that pony was sold, and then we moved to the farm, and we moved with my auntie and my uncle and my mum and dad. There was 2 dwellings at the farm. And then, because my auntie was very horsey, and my mum rode a little bit, but wasn't as passionate as my auntie. And then eventually my dad bought me another pony. So there was a little yard next door, and we went to view this pony, and he was called Toffee, and we brought him back. And the first day I went to ride him, he broke away, he galloped, he jumped the 5-bar gate, and he galloped back to the yard that he came from.
You still bought it?
So I was like, oh my goodness. Anyway, that sort of put me more onto like going to some competitions and
What
my
kind
dad,
of competitions? Jumping,
so like
dressage?
little show jumping, unaffiliated, odd little hunter trial. My dad bought a clapped out trailer and then patched it all up and made it all look nice, and would go on the weekends and
Yeah.
and go to some shows. Not every weekend, because obviously they were busy doing their own things as well. But like if I had a chance, I would go to a show. I used to get really nervous, so I had to like sort of like build myself up to go to the show. But when I went and did it, I really enjoyed it.
Did you have like a pre-show ritual you had to do?
Probably not at that age. I was only probably about 12, 13 then, so it was literally like just try not to feel nervous and try not to get sick, before it, and just go out and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And then once I started to do it, I was fine. I loved it. And then I got the bug and I wanted to do it more and more and more.
Yeah, and your dad was very supportive of it all.
Yeah, really supportive. So he bought me the horse and he got me the transport, and not really from not horsey at all. He was a scaffolder in the middle of London, and but yeah, he just tried to support what I sort of wanted to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good.
And then you stepped up to horses. What was that step up like?
Yeah, so the step up to horses, you see, like back then I didn't have a clue really what I was doing. So I rode the pony, and then I got a horse, and the horse was an absolute lunatic thoroughbred thing that used to go everywhere at a rate of knots. And I just enjoyed going to hunter trials and that kind of stuff. And there were some local little hunter trials near to where we lived. I'd have to hack there because we didn't have a trailer big enough to put the horse in. So there's one story. I hacked her 2 miles down the road. We got there. She kicked me in the knee. I let go of her. She galloped all the way back 2 miles again, down a main road. So I went all the way back home, got back on her, hacked her all the way back up there, did the open hunter trial, and she won it. And that was like my first kind of, well, what I wouldn't even call it a success, but that was like my first rosette, my
Yeah.
first like thing of doing anything that I thought I was proud of, and yeah, it sort of went from there. And then we ended up. Then she actually we kept her until she was quite old, and then she just died naturally of natural cause, or we had her put down. And then I got a job in racing, so I worked for a lady called Christy McCarthy, and she was based in Godstone, and I went there 5 mornings a week and just rode out, and she sort of took a bit of a shine to me, and we got on really well. She was quite a tricky character. She wasn't everyone's cup of tea. She was quite nasty to people, really, but we got on really well. And her son used to event, and so I'd ask her so many questions and look at the photos on a
Yeah.
wall, and then she started to tell me about what he'd done, and then she still had the horse that he had evented up to 4-star level, I think it was back then, and she said, you can ride him.
Oh,
So I was
amazing.
like, wow, that is amazing. So she let me ride him, and she'd help me a little bit, and she let me take him to a couple of shows, and then I bought an ex-racehorse and just started riding it at home. And then I saw in a local magazine that this Lucy Thompson, that was the European champion, had a clinic going on not far from where we were. So I went to that, and I just, all I wanted to do from them was go eventing. And she loved the horse, and she offered me some work, and she said that she'd give me some lessons a couple of times a week. And I was like, wow, this is an amazing opportunity. So that's what I went on to do.
And how long did you work at the racing yard for?
So I probably worked there for a good 5 years, and then I had a job teaching in a little local riding school, and then I had a job in a pub in the evening, and then I had some liveries at home. So I just worked as much as I could
Yeah.
to pay for what I wanted to do. My parents were supportive, but they wouldn't just give it to me, so I had to go out there and work as hard as I could to do what I wanted to do with the horses.
Yeah. And what was that first competition like?
So, what, my first BE
Yeah.
competition? So, yeah, this is an interesting story. So, I had this little ex-racehorse, and then a random lady came to the yard and asked if she could have like livery with us, and we ended up getting on really well. And she actually ended up supporting me and bought me a little lorry and supported the horse and paid for me to go to the event. So it's like a first bit of like sponsorship or
Yeah.
ownership. And oh
For
yeah,
anyone who doesn't know what kind of how ownership works and that kind of side of things, do you want to quickly just...
yeah. So if you've got an owner, generally the owner will have a horse, and they will base it with you as the rider, and you have to then produce the horse, school the horse, get the horse ready for competitions, care for the horse, compete the horse, trying to do it successfully,
Yeah.
because owners can be a little bit tricky if their horses don't go brilliantly. Um, and yeah, that's what's really entailed in like having an owner.
Yeah.
But this lady wasn't really an owner to start with. She was more of a supporter. And then she had a really nappy horse that I ended up riding and taking her to some events as well. Yeah, so she really got me on the road to go out eventing. I was nervous, but
Yeah.
I loved it. I wanted to do it. I was like, I want to go to badminton. I want to go to Burley. I'd been
Yeah.
there and watched, and that's all I wanted to do.
And then how did you work your way up?
So after riding several different horses, and they weren't great horses, but they were nice horses. They got me out eventing and stuff like that. And then actually my dad bought me quite an experienced 4-star horse called Proud Ginger, who was originally ridden by Trisha Price, who had ridden to a very high level herself. And he came on the market, and my dad obviously saw that I was like really, like, that's all I wanted to do. So he said, yeah, you can have the horse. So he bought it, and then I rode it round, I think, Blenheim. I did badminton on him. I did loads on him. He was the first horse that I took to badminton. It was my first go. He jumped double clear. He did a beautiful dressage test. He ended up being placed there. It was amazing. It was my dream come true. everyone was watching and cheering me on, and it was amazing experience.
Is that the horse that you eventually took to 5 star?
Yeah, so he well, back in the day, badminton was classed as 4 star. That was like the highest level, and then now they've made it 5 star because there's lower levels.
Yeah.
So yeah, he did my first 5 star, but was 4 star
Yeah.
because it was a very long time ago.
Do you have a favourite discipline out of the 3?
I used to hate the dressage,
Yeah.
but only because no one taught me about dressage. So I didn't understand it, and it was frustrating when I couldn't do it properly. And then I actually had some lessons. There was a local guy to me called Gordon Murphy, and he really helped me with the dressage. Had some lessons with Pippa Funnel. And so through all of those things, I gradually started to enjoy the dressage.
Yeah.
And then I started to understand how important the dressage was to the other phases. You know, you've got to be able to balance your horse, shorten your horse, lengthen your horse, like you do in the dressage arena when you're jumping and going cross country. So now I enjoy it. But for anyone out there that hates the dressage, trust me, if you actually learn to love the dressage, it helps you in all the different phases.
Yeah. Was there any time where you were out on that cross country course and you thought, oh my God, what am I doing? Why am I here?
Loads of times. Loads of times. When I walked the course, even at 4 star, like
What
your
height's
Blenheims.
4-star?
So 4 star is like your Blenheim, Bramham. I think it's a maximum height of 120, but when they're huge cross country fences, 120 is massive. Yeah, it is massive. And you'd walk the course and you'd think, God, is this actually possible for any animal to, to be able to jump over these?
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't think there's anyone out there in the start box of those major competitions that doesn't feel nerves. You've got to, because it makes you ride better. If you can put your nerves into a positive, you sort of forget about it when you leave the start box. You're wetting yourself in the start box,
How
and
do you
then
put
as
your
soon
nerves
as you
into
get
a
out,
positive?
I don't actually know how to explain that. I think obviously you want to get out there, and you want to give the course a go. But when you walk the course, you understand that there's a lot of fences that require judgment and skill and control with you and the horse. And I think if you and the horse have got a really good partnership, it makes you feel more confident that you can get out there and give it a crack. Yeah.
When you're walking around the course for cross country, what's kind of your thought process? What are you doing when you're going around?
I think when everyone walks a course, they walk it with the horse that they're going to ride round the course in mind. So every horse is different. Some have very long strides, some have short strides, some are very genuine at the skinnies, some could be a bit cheeky and want to nip out. So I think you walk the course with that in mind. You're riding that horse round. How is that horse going to cope with that fence? You've still got to get out there. You've still got to be brave. You've still got to be committed. But you definitely, when you're looking at the fences, you're looking at them thinking, is this something that's going to catch my horse out? Or, how will my horse cope with that? Is it going to make that long 2 strides? Or am I going to have to bring it back and put an extra stride in it? It's just really dependent on what you're sat on.
Yeah. And then, would you have any tips for anyone who is right at the beginning wanting to get into BE?
Yeah, so I would just say, to anyone that wanted to start to go out and do BE, make sure you're confident at the level that you're going to go out and do. BE is quite different because the courses can look a little bit more substantial because they're well built and they dress the fences, so there could be flowers and dressings around them. Just make sure that you've done enough training at the level that you're going to do to go out there and do it confidently. If you're not getting round a 70, don't enter the 80. Make sure at the level that you're doing, you're very consistent with what you do.
Yeah. So BE is obviously very expensive. Would you have any tips for anyone who maybe doesn't have financial backing how to get into it, or even like if we start at the start, how to get into riding in general. You spoke about how you went and worked at the riding school and
Yeah.
stuff.
I think it's very dependent on, what's available in your area and, how much support you've got. Like if you're young from your parents or, if you've got a decent job that you can afford to go and do the competitions. Very dependent on what situation you're in.
Yeah. And then obviously what you do is very, very scary. And I've spoke to you about this before in your attack room, and we spoke about your worst fall.
Yeah.
I want you to take me all the way through that story time, start to finish, because it's obviously it's not a good thing that happened, but it's a really
No.
good story.
Yeah. No, it's good. And I think, you can learn a lot from that, whether, it's like from a positive or a negative. But so I'd ridden at a high level for quite a few years of my life and had quite a few horses at a top level. And then I ended up just having one mare at 5-star level, and I took her to Po a couple of times, and I did badminton on her, and she was getting to an age where, she was probably only going to do one more 5-star.
Yeah.
I wanted a breed from her as well, so she was 16, and I took her to Po. And at this point, I only had young horses and then her at a high level. So we got there, and I was confident about it. And walked the course. She was a super jumper. Felt really confident. She'd never really made any kind of mistakes, or, felt that, she was, not going to jump anything. And I walked the course, and I was
This is
happy.
your cross country course.
Yeah, so on
How
the
did
cross
your
country.
first two phases go?
So the dressage, which was normally her worst phase, she did really bloody well. So we'd worked out a bit of a routine with her. She was quite a strong horse, so we'd had her in a double bridle. I started to have help with Judy Bradwell, who was fantastic with her. We worked out a really good strategy of how to get her prepared for the dressage. Come on. And so that was great. And then obviously the cross country comes before the show jumping at a 3-day. So I went straight out onto the cross country. She was very keen, very fiery, and she came out like a raging bull.
Yeah.
And sort of shot off. And anyway, it was fine. I knew what she was like. Started to jump around the course, and she felt really good. And then she'd had a run out quite early on. And I just thought, do you know what? For the sake of a 20 penalties, if I get home, this is her last 5-star, and we complete it, I'm happy. She'd been amazing all of her life.
Yeah.
Everyone sort of said, she's never going to be a top horse. And she wasn't a top horse competitively because she was quite chunky and she couldn't really gallop. But she got to that level and she loved it. And we were working our way around the course. We put the 20 behind us. That went. Then she started to go really nicely, and I thought, yeah, this feels good. I started to feel a bit tired because obviously I wasn't as fit as I used to be because I wasn't riding at that level all the time. And you think, oh, I ride a lot at home, so I'm plenty fit enough. But actually, you need to do more than that.
Yeah.
And she started to feel a little bit tired as well. And I just thought, let's just nurse her home. We've gone round okay. If we complete, we'll show jump tomorrow. And she's ticked another box. And second to last fence, I sort of went to ride her forwards to the fence. She'd conked out. And, she wasn't as alert as she normally is. And she just never took off. And she rotated and smashed down onto me. And smashed my head and my whole body, and I got rushed off into an ambulance, and I was literally battered and bruised all out. I have no feeling on one side of my leg now.
What did she like do? What did she break?
So it was more internal bruising. So
Right.
I broke my ribs. I damaged all the nerves in my right leg. It was just a crushing fall, and luckily I had a body protector and my air vest, as I think she probably would have crushed me to death. And then I didn't leave the house for 3 months because I couldn't walk. And then it just took a long time to rebuild that up. And the nicest thing was when, so she was obviously quite distressed herself,
Yeah.
and she was a funny horse. Like she wasn't a very friendly horse, but we sort of had a really good connection. So I loved her and she loved me. And when I got took off into the ambulance, she was literally going mad until I came back in the wheelchair. And then when she saw me, she settled down completely.
bless her.
And on the way back, I probably shouldn't have travelled like that, but I went in the back of the lorry and they made me like a big bed. And they left the door open so that she could see me the whole way home. And she just sort of like whinnied every now and again, making sure I was not dead.
How long were you in hospital for then?
So I was in hospital in France for a couple of days, and I had CT scans and MRI scans, and then they were like, look, you're really battered, but you can go home. And then I came home and I was coughing blood and in a huge amount of pain. And so then I got sent to Leicester Hospital, and then again they did the full MRI,
Yeah.
CT scan, and just found loads of internal bruising and fractured bones and stuff like that. So, but I'm still here. I can tell the tale, so that's good.
What was the recovery like from that fall? Like you said, it was 3 months. Did you do much?
Oh, it
physio
drove me
and stuff?
mad because I couldn't actually walk properly, so I was sort of like homebound.
Yeah.
And obviously because I was so battered, like if I moved, I was in agony. So I was on a high dosage of painkillers, and that made me really sleepy. So I slept a lot. And people would come and visit and stuff like that, but I just didn't really, because I was so out of it on the painkillers. I
Yeah.
just didn't really want people to. I couldn't even remember them coming over anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was about 3 months, and then gradually I built myself up and started to go out, and then it was probably 6 months before I sat on a horse again. And then
That's quite quick. Like
yeah,
quicker than I was
yeah,
expecting.
yeah.
I broke my femur in a riding accident, and it was a year before I
Yeah.
was even walking properly again.
Yeah, yeah,
So that
yeah.
is really quick.
So I'd had a fall like many years before that, where I was at Belton Horse Trials and I was just doing the intermediate, and I'd known the horse inside out, and we were galloping round and we'd gone through the water, and you had to turn sharp right to a coffin fence, and I pulled the right rein, and I thought, God, the rein's broken. And then I pulled the left rein and I thought, wow, the left rein's broken as well. And what had happened is the bit had snapped in the middle, so the
Oh my
bit come
God.
completely out of the horse's
I've
mouth.
never heard of that happening ever.
So then I thought, shit, what do I do? And he bolted and he galloped all the way to the top of the park at Belton. I think people just thought that I was out of control, so they carried on the course.
Right.
And I thought, when he gets to the top, he's going to be knackered and I'll chuck myself off. And he didn't. He saw a horse going round the cross country, so he turned around, bolted all the way down.
You stayed on during
Yeah,
all
I was
of
still
this?
on him at this point. I was screaming to the girl in front of me, pull up, my bit's broken, I can't stop. He jumped the fence after the girl,
Yeah.
and then I was trying to steer him with my stick, like on
Right,
his
yeah, yeah.
on his head, because there were so many ropes and turns. And then eventually he jumped onto the golf course next to Belton House, but didn't clear it, somersaulted and smashed down and broke every bone in my foot. So that was another scary thing.
You threw it. Absolutely threw it. I bet all of them affected your confidence. What
I
was
think
that
when
like?
you ride, there's always an element that you could potentially have an accident.
Yeah.
And you try and ride to the best of your ability to try and stop those accidents. You try and work on your balance and your judgment before the fences. And the first fall where I broke my foot, it didn't really knock me, but I was a lot younger then. And, I was still like, I want to go to the top level of eventing. So you're hungry for it. And all I was thinking is, God, this has just delayed me now. I'm not going to be able to ride. And I was on the world-class lottery training scheme. So I was sponsored by the lottery and given training and stuff like that. It's for potential, talented riders, however, you want to put it. And because of that accident, that I ended up coming off of it, because you have to achieve like certain criteria and certain
Okay.
results. And when I was on that, it was great to be selected, but it was quite pressurizing. So you had to achieve certain results at certain levels, and if you didn't reach those results, you'd have to like explain why you hadn't done it. Um, and I think I was quite young, and because I wasn't brought up in a competitive, in the pony club and all of that kind of stuff, I found that quite hard to deal with. And so when I came off of it, I actually thought, you know what, I'm just going to enjoy my horses and do the
Yeah.
best I can do. Sometimes you have bad days, sometimes you have brilliant days. Um, Horses aren't robots.
Mhm.
They're living beings and they've got a mind of their own, and you've got to train that horse to
Yeah.
work with you, and try and get the best out of that animal. Sometimes it doesn't happen. So, that's another thing, that I'd say to anyone that's starting out. If you have a bad day, put it behind you. Don't let it stress you out. Go and work on what you need to work on, and then go back out and give it another go. But,
Mm.
don't let it demoralise you, because it's quite easy to get down when
Yeah.
things haven't gone right.
What was that first ride like after France?
So after France, I was really slowly just building myself back up again. Obviously, the mare had been retired because that was always the plan, and she went and had a foal. And then I had some younger horses, and yeah, I was fine. I was still enjoying it, and but I don't think I had I don't think I had that desire to go back to that top level.
Hmm.
I just thought, life is precious, and got family and friends, and horses are my passion. They always will be. I will never do anything, you know without horses being involved. And I thought, I've got some nice young ones, and had a little mare that I took up to intermediate again, and yeah, it's like still enjoyed it. um, but it's very difficult if you haven't got a team of horses at that top level, and people that are financially supporting you. One, it's really expensive. Two, most of the people couldn't go out and buy those horses, you
Yeah.
know, with their own money. They rely on their owners and their sponsors and stuff like that. And yeah, just sort of dwindled down. And but I had my yard. I refurbished my yard. I put a school, a big school in, and
Hmm.
started to teach a bit more. And yeah, it just sort of everything comes to an end at some point.
Yeah.
Never going to say never that I wouldn't go and do it again, because if I had, you know, a really special horse that that I could afford to run and keep, then of course it's amazing to go to those big
Yeah.
events. The thrill of getting ready for it and driving through the gates of Badminton or Burley or
Hmm.
any of the big events, Bramham, Blenheim. You get a bit of you get butterflies in your tummy, and it's like, wow, I'm really here.
Yeah.
So, but at the minute, I'm really happy concentrating on producing the young horses, helping people, that are starting out eventing, and yeah, yes, just a bit of a change.
Yeah. Did you ever have any mental blocks when you came back to the riding again?
Um, I think I probably had more mental blocks when I was first started to ride at the high level, because actually, if I look back, I think, God, how did I get around those courses? I didn't really have a clue what I was doing. And then with experience, you learn and you get better as you get older, and the more that you do. Sometimes I think I could rewind,
Mm.
and with what I know now, I would do things very differently. But I think that's a part of
What
learning.
would you tell your younger self if you could tell them something?
I would just be a little bit more, have a. How do I explain it? So, yes, if I could tell myself something now when I was 25, I would tell myself to take it a little bit slower. Don't be in such a rush. Look after your horse. I was so ambitious when I was younger, and because I wanted to get to these levels, and then you get seen, and you know, you get put on that world-class training thing, and it's just quite pressured. And then when things go wrong, you beat yourself up about it, and you know, I've got to try and make it better. And actually, just go away and go back and train more and train your horse more, and don't stress about it. I think people put a lot of pressure on themselves when they want to be competitive and want to ride at a high level, or in any sport, I would imagine. So I think that kind of thing, I think you've got to have a strict training regime, and you know, if things go wrong, go back to the drawing board, make another plan.
Yeah. When you were telling that little story, you spoke a little bit about rider fitness and stuff.
Yeah.
Did you have like a set fitness routine?
So when I had a string of top horses, I would say that I'd probably ride about 10 to 12 horses a day, and I would say that that kept me fairly fit
Yes.
to ride at a high level. But nowadays you see people doing so much more, like running, you know, stripping weight off of them, because obviously it's easier for the horse to carry someone that's lighter. People gym it, do Pilates, all of that kind of stuff. Now, I never did that, but I did do a lot of yard work, a lot of mucking out, a lot of riding. So I never felt unfit until that last 5 star. And I thought, wow, this is, you know, I'm not fit enough to ride round this. And yes, I got round. Well, I didn't get round it because I crushed myself. But, you know, I managed to get to where I got to, which was like the end of the course. But definitely I was way fitter, you know, when I was younger, and riding more at that high level.
When you were riding at that high level, was nutrition ever an aspect?
I think things like that have changed over time. I think like back then, you know, I'm quite old now, so I think back in those days, I think people were just a little bit more blasé about it, you know.
Yes.
You'd think you go to the event, oh, they've got a burger van there, that's fine, that'll do me. But I think now people are a lot stricter with what they eat, and you know, they're a lot healthier. And I think all of the fitness and the dietary things have changed over years, but it definitely wasn't as influential when, you know, when I first started doing that high level.
Yeah. I want to speak about your yard where we're filming today.
Yeah.
So was this the first yard that you owned yourself?
So yeah, this is the first yard that I owned.
Yeah.
So when I first moved to Leicestershire, I came up from Sussex, and my parents had a lovely place with stables and arena and everything. It was stunning, but it was too far to travel up to the north all the time, and I used to come up a couple of times a week for training, and then. So I moved up here, rented a yard, moved my horses. I only had a couple of horses and a horse box, and then I just slowly built things up, and got some more rides. And then I probably rented for a couple of years, and then this place came up for sale.
Yeah.
And we were friendly with the chap that had bought it socially before we knew it was for sale anyway. And him and his partner had split up, and they wanted to sell it, and so we bought it, and that's got to be 20 years ago now.
And speak me through kind of what you've done with the place, because it's amazing.
So when we bought it, there was like the 2 barns. You know, the stables are still exactly the same. They're quite old-fashioned, but they work really well. There's 9 stables in each barn, and a tack room and a wash box. The wash box wasn't there, so we've put that in. And then we've added 3 more outside stables, which was just like a barn. It was just a mess, really. And then there was a little school here, which was on a hill, so it felt like you were riding downhill all the time. It was fine when you were going up, but like when you were going down, it just felt like you were like on a young one, you were going to trip over all the time. So gradually over the years, we sold horses, and I sold my big lorry. I thought I don't really need it. You know, we can have a smaller lorry, and that paid for the yard to be done, You know, we put the horse walker in. We've got a lovely big arena, full set of show jumps and some cross country fences. We put the lunge pen in.
Did you enjoy that whole process?
Yeah, it's like a massive achievement, isn't
Yeah.
it? We made a nice area at the top of the school, which needs weeding and cleaning. But you know, in the summer, it's just lovely. It's peaceful. We can sit out there in the evenings. And then obviously we've got this little flat that we're in now that we live in, which we're hopefully going to extend. You're always doing something. Like when you've done something, there's always something else to do. So yeah, I love it here.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I want to speak about the buying and selling. How did we get into that?
So yeah, this is a good story. So I teach the riding club on a Wednesday, and it started to develop and get bigger and bigger, and more people started to come, and I started to get to know the ladies more. And so there was a lady called Amy, and she said, my father-in-law has event horses. And I said, oh, right. And we got chatting, and she said, he hasn't got anyone to ride them at the minute, so I've suggested that he brings them to you. So I was like, okay, that's good. So nothing really happened, and then over a few months he contacted me, and he had one horse, and he sent it to me. Lovely, lovely horse. Unfortunately, he's injured, so his career sort of got stopped, but like he was a top class horse. And he was really keen on buying horses from Ireland. Right. So he started to send me over to Ireland, like started off going to Goresbridge, and it was just like an amazing experience because I'd never done that. And he bought all of the horses.
How is the Irish market different to here?
I think probably in the auctions you can probably pick up cheaper horses. I think here in England, you know, they're more developed and they're competed more. You get a real mixture in Ireland. You get like your potential superstars, your riding horses that, you know, could go either way, and then, you know, your general cobs, hacking horses. It's a real mixture. But they have a really different setup there in the way that their sales work. So over here, we don't really have good sales for selling horses, which is a shame. And Ireland have got so many sales, and they sell loads of horses. Like the setup is completely different.
Yeah.
So I sort of got into it from David, my owner. And then it sort of become a bit of an addiction, really. And then I ended up buying more and more and more, and doing little bits with them and selling them. And sometimes we kept them and run them on. They were always for sale, the ones that we bought, because it was a way of us sort of making a bit of extra money. We own quite a lot of horses ourselves, and so, you know, the expense of keeping a horse it's really expensive. It's not cheap. So it was just another way of us, and it's quite nice going there and scouting through and finding some rough diamond that could end up being quite nice. And we've sold horses on that have gone and done amazing things, you know, got to the highest level, and it's quite nice to look back, and I found that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's
Is that
good.
your favourite part about it?
I really enjoy the young horses now. Obviously, I teach a lot, and I go abroad to teach a bit as well. So
where do you go abroad to teach?
So I go over to Ibiza, and I go to Madrid. So I have one family in Ibiza that I go and teach once a month, and I'll just go there for a couple of days. And you wouldn't think that it was a place for horses, you know.
Yeah,
you think Ibiza's like this wild party island, and then in the countryside there's all these yards, and they do show jumping and dressage.
How did you get into going there once a month?
So Victoria, that's actually here now, she's English, but she lived in Ibiza and had a business there. She put a random post on Facebook asking for people to go over and teach in return for a little bit of a holiday and accommodation. So Sarah Cohen, that was Cutteridge, she's another like former 5-star event rider. she put my name forwards, and so Victoria contacted me, and Sarah had met Victoria at a house party in Ibiza when they were on holiday, and they obviously got chatting about horses. And Victoria contacted me, and she'd had a few people go over there and help, and I went there, and we just hit it off, and she's got a really cool little horse, feisty little horse actually. So. And yeah, we just got on really good together, and we got the horse going better, and it sort of went on from there. And then I ended up just gradually getting more and more clients over there. At the end of the day, they don't have people that have ridden to a level to help them. They're on a tiny little island, and believe me, they need help. They're wild. And then from then on, I started to go to the events with Victoria. So we'd travel to Madrid because there's no eventing in Ibiza. You have to go to the mainland.
Okay.
And just started to meet people. And now I go to Madrid and teach a family there and several other people. And I try and do that once a month as well. So
how long do you stay when you're out there once a month?
I tried to do it in 5 days because obviously I've still got my yard here and my commitments here. So I sort of go, fly out early one morning and then teach straight away for a couple of days, and then fly to Madrid and teach there for a couple of days, and then fly home.
Yeah. And then you do your clinics and everything here as well.
Yeah, and then I do my riding club clinics, and then we do various other training sessions for people that aren't in the riding club.
Yeah.
So.
And you teach such a wide range of people. Who do you think, everyone has their own teaching style, and they get it from loads of different people. Who do you think inspired your teaching style? Because I've stood and I've watched you teach loads of times, and I love watching you teach.
I suppose over the years you see so many different people teaching, and you pick up little tips from loads of people. I always remember going to Pippa Funnels, and she was very strict on rider's position and the horse's way of going and being in balance, and so that sort of stuck in my mind. And then Kenneth Clawson, who is sadly not with us anymore, he became a really good friend of mine, and he was the show jumping trainer for eventers, and so I watched him a lot and taught. And I always think teaching is there's areas where you've got to be strict, but giving people confidence. And actually, I don't mind who I teach. I'm happy to teach someone that is scared to trot, as well as someone that wants to go and jump around and advance. You can still get the same satisfaction out of helping someone and seeing that they're improving and enjoying it. To the people that can ride really well, when you're just giving them, little guidances on how they could have done it better and stuff like that.
And you did something really cool in lockdown. Do you want to speak me through that?
So Rachel Wakefield, she, for a bit of fun and to support the NHS, she got a group of, high-level riders to do a 5-star dressage test, a show jumping round, and because obviously we couldn't go places to do cross-country, we did a bit of an assault course in the arena. So everyone had to do the same plan.
And this was because of COVID and NHS.
Yeah, so it was a little bit like it was going to go on a TV channel for people to watch. So it was just a bit of a lift up from just being stuck at home. I actually loved it. I was like, it's the best thing that's ever happened. I could just stay at my yard. Everywhere was pristine. Not spending loads of money. It was amazing. So anyway, we did this. We did a dressage test, and then so we had to video each phase, and then we did a show jumping round. But because the NHS were, being very strict about people getting injured, unnecessarily, we weren't allowed to televise the show jumping. So then Rachel said, "We'll all do a show jumping round on a bike." So I was like, "Bloody hell, that sounds like hard work." So we got our bike, and then we dressed him up. So we got the hobby horse head, and then we got a schooling whip and attached a wig to the end of it, so he had a tail. And we put a bridle on, and dressed up in our show gear, and off we goes round the course of poles on the floor. Well, can you imagine trying to jump a double on a bike?
I don't
Like
think I'd get over the first half.
you're
Let alone
literally
the
over the
second.
first one, and then the bike's flicking up behind. So anyway, it was really entertaining. And then after that, we did a a bit of an assault course, and you had to do it with a dog. So I did it with all of my 6 dogs, and it was absolute chaos, but it was great fun. So you
Yeah.
arrived at a 3-day event. This was the start of your course. You had your wheelbarrow, you put your shavings in it, you put your tack on it, and you went to the stables, and you had to wheel in and out of these cones. Stop. Then you had to get your dog on the lead, go under a jump, then jump a jump, and then go round the corner, stop, and then you had to do apple bobbing.
Okay.
So, stupid me, I'm thinking, why won't my head go in that bucket? Because I haven't taken my hat off. Because you're trying to do it all in a bit of a rush, like the fastest time. Anyway, it was hilarious. And then you went to the cocktail party. So we put a table in the arena, fake champagne bottle, like made it look really good. And then at the end of it, we had to then go and make up our duvet, our bed kit to go to bed in the lorry. So it was so much fun, and it was a brilliant support to the NHS.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people watched it and enjoyed it. We got
Yeah, it
marks
sounds
for our
good.
dressage test, and mine was crap.
You did the dressage on the horse.
Yeah, did the dressage on the horse. Yeah, so obviously I was on like a novice horse trying to do a 5-star dressage test, so there was loads of mistakes. But it was the whole part of joining in, which was brilliant.
All of it fun.
It was really good. I'll send you the video. You'll
Yeah,
have
we'll
a
put
laugh about it.
guys.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this, head across to TikTok. We're gonna upload some clips.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think this is going to be a hard question for you because you've achieved so much. But I want to know what your biggest achievement was.
God, I've had like a few really good rounds. I think I had a horse called On Cue for Gold, which he didn't give you the feeling like he was the most talented horse. And I can remember coming back after riding him round a novice and saying to a friend of mine that used to help me at events called Treen, I'm never jumping that any higher than this. Anyway, he ended up going to 5-star level. He just tried and tried and tried. And we went to Buccalo one year, and he finished in the top 10. He might have been 7th. I can't remember exactly. It was one of his best cross-country rounds, one of my best cross-country rounds. He'd done a lovely dressage test. He was a super horse. So I think that was a big highlight. Then I rode on a Nations Cup team at Buccalo, which I was a little bit apprehensive about because I hadn't been put under that kind of pressure. You got the cat joining you. And we ended up finishing 3rd, so that was nice. And then I think probably if I look back at my first ever badminton, to do a super dressage test and jump a double clear on
What
your
height was your first one?
attempt. That was 5-star at badminton.
Okay, right, yeah.
And to finish being placed, I think that's got to be
amazing.
like one of the best achievements.
Yeah.
And that horse taught me so much. I had no idea what I was doing going around that course, and I pointed. I found it quite natural to see strides, and we just got out there and we were a bit of a team. He trotted into the water to a massive jetty, and I was thinking, oh my God, we're never going to get over this.
Yeah.
And he just popped over it, and I think that was a good good highlight. And then I've had so many lovely horses, and I've had loads of like good results with them, and I think every time you go out and the horses go well, I think that is an achievement. I think you can get something out of doing a 90 on a young horse and it feeling like a little young superstar, to then jumping round your 5-stars, your badmintons, your burleys, your pose, and doing that well. And then of course that is an amazing achievement. But at each level, it's very it's very the levels of the classes is very much depends on what horse you're sitting on. So if you've got a 5-year-old doing its first event, if they go around and do it lovely, you're chuffed to bits when you're finished. And the same like when you've done badminton.
Yeah.
Badminton, you've got a bit more of a thrill because it's terrifying when you walk around it. But
and we're so lucky to have you at our next demo, which I'm so excited for. Guys, if you haven't heard of the demo, it's on the 22nd of June. I think tickets will be out by the time this goes live. If you want to go get a ticket, go get it. It's an amazing lineup, and you are part of that lineup.
Yeah.
Speak me through. Have you done demos and stuff before?
So yes, I have. I've done some demos where I've ridden for for people that are sort of doing the lecture. Did a couple with Kenneth Clawson, the chap that I mentioned earlier, and done various little bits. Sort of locally. I did one for Your Horse Live, and so I'm really looking forward to doing it. I enjoy trying to help people and giving them a bit of an insight into what we're trying to teach them. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think you'll smash it. I'm so excited. Guys, you best get thinking of questions to ask Laurence, because it's a 10-minute Q&A at the end of his demo. So if you guys have any questions for him, get thinking now. You can fire at him. I'm really excited for the demo.
Yeah, it's going to be really
excited.
good.
Laurence is going to be joined by Millie Stennett and Blob the Cob. So 2 amazing riders. Yeah, it's going to be really, really good. I'm super excited. So.
Blob the Cob, that's a fantastic
It's
name.
great, isn't it? Yeah, Kate Lewis, Bob the Cob. So yeah, go across to Atlantic Harmony website. It's atlanticharmonyequestrian.co.uk, and you guys can get your tickets now.
Ah, really good. Go get your tickets.
Yeah. Come see Laurence, guys. Okay, I have some dilemmas for you.
Go on, go for it.
So we popped a question box up on Instagram.
Yeah.
Saying that we're going to be filming with you, and these are what some people have asked. So the first question is, how do I balance training for the 3 disciplines?
How do you balance training for the 3 disciplines? I would say your basic schooling and training of the horse helps you in every single discipline. So, make sure your horse will go forwards and come back. Make sure it's listening to you. Make sure you're working as a team. Because I think, going back to talking about dressage, the dressage is so important because that helps you in every single phase. So, like I said before, your schooling is so important. The training of the horse is so important. Because with an event horse, it's so much harder because they have to do all 3 phases.
Yeah.
And they have to do all 3 phases well for you to be competitive. So, but definitely I'd say, your basic schooling and dressage training is going to help with every discipline.
When you were competing at that high level, what would a typical week of training look like? Like, how many times are you doing your dressage? How many times are you jumping?
Yeah, so when you're competing at the highest level, you've got to have quite a strict program because you've got to school your horse, you've got to jump your horse, you've got to gallop your horse, take it to the gallops. They've got to be super fit. Mm-hmm. You've got to hack your horse. People have various different methods in their training, but everyone's trying to achieve the same thing, to have a fit, relaxed, happy, healthy horse at that top level.
Yeah.
I think that's really important, especially the relaxed side of it, because when you go to your 5-star, 4 stars, whatever you're doing, and you've aimed to go to that 3-day, those horses are super fit. Mm-hmm. And then to get a dressage test out of them, it's quite difficult because they know they're going there to gallop around the cross country. That's what they love to do. So, to have the horse super relaxed and working with you is really important.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the next dilemma we have, which kind of relates quite nicely back, is how do I improve my horse's fitness for cross country?
Okay, so, depending on what level you're doing, cantering your horse or doing some interval training is a good way to improve the horse's fitness. Also, if you're in an area that's quite hilly, riding up hills, trotting, cantering if you're on a good surface is very good for their cardio and their heart. You don't have to go fast, but you can still make them work quite hard. If you're not in a hilly area, doing, sets of, if you're doing interval training, say for instance, say we're doing a low level, do 3 sets of 4 minutes of cantering. So you're cantering for 4 minutes constantly, then allow the horse to walk for a couple of minutes and then do it again. So you're just building on their stamina. Yeah. I think a lot of people nowadays, they get fixated with just riding in the arena. And what I personally believe that horses should go on all sorts of terrains. They should go out hacking. They should have a variety of work.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't have a groom and I struggle on my own. Any tips to make it less stressful?
Get a groom. No, it's so difficult because everything costs so much money. I would just say be super organised. When when you're going to the event and you've got your times, plan, get everything ready for each phase that you need. Give yourself enough time. Sometimes you go to an event and times are very tight. And then that can be quite difficult. Maybe ask if you can have times that are a little bit spread out when you make the entry. Say that you're going on your own. It's all planning. It's all to do with planning.
What was your routine when you were eventing at that high level? Because I see on YouTube, I watch people packing their lorries and stuff, and they've got like folders of what needs to go in. They've got checklists. They're checking everything off. Yeah. What was your kind of routine?
Yeah. So when I was when I first started, obviously I only had like a little truck and a trailer, but I made sure that everything was packed the night before. Before I was going to leave, I wrote a list out. The horse was ready. I bathed him. I plaited him. Everything was done so that when I got to the event, it was as smooth as it could be. With horses, things go wrong. So if you get there and you've had a disaster, they've pulled a shoe off or they've broken free and they're galloping around the showground. Things like that do happen. But I think if you have a plan and you've got everything sorted before you arrive, then you're in good stead for the day, hopefully.
Did you ever show up and had forgotten something crucial?
Oh, so many times. So when I went to the World Cup final in Malmo in Sweden, me and the girl that was helping me called Sophie, who actually still does a few days a week for me now, even though she's married and got a couple of kids, we get on the ferry. So we've driven for miles down to, I don't know if it was Dover, I can't remember which route we went. Anyway, she comes up to me and we're in the canteen and she's crying and I'm like, God, what's wrong with you? I thought maybe she's a bit homesick. I've forgotten both of your saddles. Oh, God. I was like, oh, my God. Okay, I was like, let's stay calm. Yeah. The thing is, in that situation, what can you do? Yeah.
What did you do?
So, luckily for us, someone was coming out the next day.
Oh, okay.
So, they brought the saddles, but we had to get someone to take them all the way down to them. And then, in the horsey community, the eventing community, people want to help each other. So, it's a nice place to be. And, a friend of mine, or I can't remember who lent me, but they lent me a saddle. And it worked for a couple of days and then mine arrived. So, there's been many a time I've forgotten. My worst thing to forget is a tie.
Okay.
I'm anal about the ties being white all the time. Yeah. And obviously when you're touching them and you've been around horses and you get prints down white. And I'm like, no. Wash them, put them in the cupboard, forget to put them back in the lorry.
No.
So I've got about 300 ties. I go and buy one at every event.
Love that. Okay, so this podcast is called Beyond the Stable.
Yeah.
So I want to know what you do beyond the stable.
So I try really hard to have a little bit of time away from the stable. So I really enjoy going away, seeing family. Like when the weather's good, it's nice. We take the dogs to the beach, try and have a bit of a variety, try and go out on an evening. Because I think when you work with horses, they're so time consuming that it actually you can actually sour from it a little bit, and you don't want that to happen because, you know, as a professional or anyone that owns a horse, you've got to keep the love of that going. And I think sometimes if you're doing it 24/7, 365 days a week, it can get you down, especially in the winter. So, you know, anyone that's listening, make sure you have a day off, or make sure you go and do something fun for yourself. You know, some people going and riding their horse is their fun because, you know, they've been at work in an office all day. But, you know, this is like our office. We've got 30 horses and it takes up a lot of time.
Yeah. And my last thing for you is, as you know, we're travelling up and down the country, speaking to professionals, influencers. Is there anyone that you would love to see on the podcast?
Because I'm sort of from sort of eventing all the time, I think someone that's very relevant now in this day and age would be like, who I respect a lot, would be Piggy French. And also I've got a lot of admiration for Pippa Funnell. I think she's been an amazing lady in the sport. She is mega talented, teaching riding young horses, and I think she's got so much knowledge to give to people. She'd be someone that I would look up to.
Amazing. So that's the goal then. We need to get
absolutely
on the podcast. I've really enjoyed speaking to you
me
today.
Too,
Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it.
Thank you all for watching. If you are watching on YouTube, then make sure you're subscribing, make sure you're liking. If you're over on Spotify, make sure you're leaving us a review. And I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you again.
Yeah, thanks very much.
And I'll see you guys next time.
I'll see you at the demo.
See you at the demo.